Former Vice President of Nigeria and presidential candidate of African Democratic Congress, Atiku Abubakar, expressed desire to bring back the fuel subsidy regime, which was scrapped by President Bola Tinubu in May 2023, has been causing ripples in the polity. Atiku's latest comments on fuel subsidy have come as a direct opposite of his earlier position on the matter. On June 5, 2020, Nigeria's former number 2 man had said, and I quote, "The stoppage of subsidy and price fixing is a right move, although it should have come earlier when the economy was stronger. Federal and state governments should proceed to remove other impediments and roll out incentives to spur investments in the sector." End of quote. Following those comments, a split has emerged between those who believe that Atiku spoke up at the right time, given the growing perception that the Tinubu government has yet to fully justify what it has done with the saved funds from the former subsidy regime. The numbers also appear to be on the rise of those who appear to be saying that the president and his team have done substantially well in how they've reinvested the humongous amount of money which used to be the exclusive preserve of a few privileged Nigerians. Now, Phrank Shaibu is a spokesman for Atiku Abubakar. He joins us now for a quick chat. Thank you for joining us, Mr. Shaibu.
Thank you very much. Good morning. How do you do?
Very well, thank you. Now, going through the statement released by former Vice President Atiku Abubakar, one salient point that cannot be missed is the fact that he talked about the the proposed production subsidy fundamentally different from the subsidy Nigerians knew before 2023. And one would wonder what exactly is the difference between this new proposal by the former Vice President and the subsidy regime we had before it was nullified by President Bola Tinubu.
Okay, thank you very much, Cynthia and or Bolanle. The distinction between the old subsidy architecture and the Atiku Economic Recovery Plan, which is what we could name the new subsidy proposal, is clear and unambiguous. The former subsidy architecture bothered on fuel imports, refined product imports into the country. And because they were coming into the country, refined products were coming into the country, we had middlemen in the process. And we had so much of unverifiable claims. But in the Atiku proposal, the difference is clear. What Atiku is proposing is simple, clear, and unambiguous. He is saying, no, we have to cut down waste. And in cutting down waste, I want a reform and subsidy placed on production. And production must be done here in Nigeria. With local refineries, I will subsidize crude. You will produce and supply petroleum products to Nigerians, reduce the cost of living, reduce energy costs, reduce cost of transportation, reduce cost of food, reduce inflation. And in monitoring that, it's simple. Let me now break it down in a layman's language. In a layman's language, what Atiku has just done, or Atiku is proposing, is simple. And I want to relate it to just something that is very relatable and something that is very common in the Nigerian situation. If you notice, since the Tinubu administration came into power in 2023, there's something they've been consistent with, and that is dishing out bags of rice, packs of rice, giving out rice palliatives to the people. And that is because Tinubu's government was conscious. They knew that the cost of rice was going up and getting out of the reach of the people. And they decided to now repackage rice and distribute to the people. That on its own is subsidy. But were they doing the right thing? The answer is no. So while Tinubu was doing that, I can give you another clear example. His son, Sheyi, will even package what I call cooked rice and distribute to some parts of northern Nigeria in what I call poisonous packages, poisonous packs, you know. But the beauty of all of this is the fact that, look, Atiku is saying if the cost of rice is high and the Nigerian people cannot afford it, what I want to do with petrol what I want to do with fuel, what I want to do with subsidy is simple. I will intervene by reducing the cost of the bag of rice and encourage farmers and provide an enabling environment for farmers to increase their production and their produce in the farms. How will he do that? By providing security. So when you transpose that directly into what we call the subsidy regime of that Atiku Abubakar is proposing, which is the Atiku Economic Recovery Plan, it's simple. What he's simply saying is that, look, we will encourage local refineries. Okay. We will subsidize crude. We will now follow the barrel, monitor the barrel, using technology to monitor this. You produce the crude, you produce the oil, produce the fuel, you supply the Nigerian people at a cheaper cost.
Frank,
but of course, this will come with a cost. It's an opportunity cost.
Frank,
do you understand me?
We do understand you. I got a chance to look at an excerpt of your statement yesterday, and you stated that Atiku recognizes that this is not a case of subsidy and no subsidy, but between an opaque intervention that breeds waste and a disciplined economic instrument that delivers measurable benefits to the citizens. That's pretty clear. But what do you make of the backlash that followed from President Tinubu himself, who basically said that this is a demonstration of serious ignorance about governance and the economy? How do you respond to his feedback?
If there is anybody who has demonstrated the highest level of ignorance, is President Bola Ahmed Tinubu. And I think his position smacks of what I call wretched illiteracy. Wretched illiteracy because what he has offered the people since he came to power is what I call reckless punishment. And Atiku is replacing reckless punishment with an intelligent reform. Mr. President claims that, look, one of the beautiful achievements of his subsidy removal is that he has provided more money for state governments for state governors to pay salaries. And we are saying, Atiku is saying and asking simply, how does that translate? How does that translate to development? Mr. President, you are robbing Peter to pay Paul. You are robbing ordinary Nigerians, making them pay higher for transportation, making them pay higher for food, depriving their children from going to school, and you are carrying money from their households, from their dining table, and giving to government houses in 36 states in Nigeria. That is not development. That is not federalism. That is not fiscal federalism. It is fiscal sedation. So, for us, when such a man who cannot differentiate between what I call fiscal sedation and calls it fiscal federalism talks about Atiku being ignorant, then it's unfortunate.
All right.
You see,
Mr. Shaibu,
there is no other definition. Go ahead. Hold on, please. Development, reform, according to Tinubu and his gang of jesters, means when Nigerians are suffering. And we dare to ask them. So the suffering of Nigerians is not the definition of reform. The meaning of a reform is when there is benefits. Reform is not when only you and members of your family and friends, the Chaguris of this world, are benefiting from the proceeds of a system. That is not reform. Reform is when Nigerians can pay for food, they can pay for energy. When there's cheaper energy, when there's cheap fuel, Nigerians will be able to transport their farm produce from their farm to the marketplaces. Nigerians will be able to pay school fees. Nigerians will be able to pay for rent. Nigerians will be able to pay for their cars or buy new cars and all of that.
Yes.
That is reform.
Now, another argument that the federal government is bringing up is the PIA, the Petroleum Industry Act. They're saying that the act does not permit subsidy. The act cut off subsidy. And so reintroducing subsidy, wouldn't that be violating the Petroleum Industry Act? Are there measures, or would you be adjusting the Petroleum Industry Act? And also for domestic refineries and also the Dangote refinery, wouldn't the reintroduction of subsidy affect, the operations and also the price of those, refineries?
My dear, the PIA Act is not a scripture. It is not a Holy Bible, neither is it the Holy Quran. The PIA Act, there are provisions of the Act there. And where provisions of the Act obstructs energy affordability for the Nigerian people, it is subject to amendments. It is not a scripture that cannot be amended. Where there are contents, where there are provisions in that act that affects the people, of course they are subject to amendment. We do not operate the authoritarian kind of leadership we have seen in this country in the last 3 years. Atiku has a template to present proposals, amendments of these acts before the National Assembly. So it will not in any way affect any of this. The NNPC, of course, will still remain viable in doing what it needs to do to generate profit, to make profit and all of that. But the issue is about the people.
Yes. Now, since we're talking about the people,
you cannot leave 200 million Nigerians naked.
Yes, Mr. Shaibu, we have just a little bit of time left.
What Atiku is saying is that, you see, I need an intelligent reform to bring the people out of this misgovernance, out of this maladministration.
All right, Phrank,
that is centered around body loan instead of over 200 million Nigerians.
Now, Phrank,
this is the issue.
Can you hear me?
So the PIA Act is a non-starter. It's a non-starter because it is where any provision obstructs the benefits that should accrue to the Nigerian people, that provisions are subject of amendments. It is not a scripture. It is not a Bible. It is not the Holy Quran.
Proponents of the subsidy say that the subsidy removal say that it frees the government from its obligation so that it can channel those resources to other sectors like education and security. I'm saying that as we speak, the headlines of today are saying that the UK is warning nationals not to travel to 18 Nigerian states, speaking of the high rate of insecurity, and we also have the highest rate of out-of-school children on a global scale. So for those who are in support of this removal, saying they can channel resources to other sectors, where is this going if we're having such alarming numbers?
Well, the beauty is this. The question I would ask you is that since President Tinubu removed subsidy, when he came with a three-word slogan after eating a bowl of amala in May 2023, and said, oh, he got to Eagle Square, climbed the podium and said subsidy is gone. Have we dared to ask him one day, where is the money? Where is the proceeds of the subsidy? We have raised questions. The issue is, we have over 20 million out-of-school children in Nigeria. The proceeds of this subsidy, the gains purportedly made from this subsidy, where has it gone to? Atiku Abubakar sat with his team some weeks ago, and we were together for over 3 weeks. We analyzed Tinubu's figures based on the FAC records, the Federal Accounts and Allocation Committee records, that between 2024 and July 2026, deductions, codenamed savings, deductions, and transfer charges, everything amounted to over 30 trillion naira. We have asked Mr. President, please, where is our money? He could not raise one single accountant to do that reconciliation. But when Atiku stepped out 2 days ago, so said, no, I'm going to return fuel subsidy. Of course, I have a new model. He did not just deploy all his court jesters. He came out himself and rendered some comments even in poorly constructed grammar. You understand? And it is unfortunate because for a man who claimed and told Nigerians that, look, we have made so much gains from subsidy, we still have out-of-school children in alarming numbers. The number of out-of-school children in Nigeria is far more than the number of the population of some African countries of some African countries. And I tell you for free, for a serious government who claim to have made gains, I will tell you, the current capacity of our universities in Nigeria hovers between 700,000 to about 900,000. Over 4 to 5 million children write the Joint Admissions and Matriculation Board exams every year. How has this government improved the infrastructure in our universities to increase the carrying capacity? So if 4 to 5 million children write JAMB every year, and the universities can only accommodate not more than 700 to 900,000, what happens to the remaining, let's say 4.1 million children?
Well,
so you cannot talk about insecurity without dealing with the issue of education.
Absolutely.
So it is this misapplication, this maladministration, this appropriation of government funds to fake agencies, non-existent agencies, to building of allocation of billions of naira, trillions of naira to agencies that do not even have records at the CAC.
All right, we'll have to end it on that note, Mr. Phrank Shaibu. Thank you so much for your time. So many questions left unanswered. We hope to get more clarity as the days go by. Phrank Shaibu, Senior Special Assistant on Public Communication to former Vice President Atiku Abubakar. Thank you for your time.